Voyager always had the best premise of any Star Trek show. When Star Trek Voyager premiered in 1995, it carried the weight of following the massive successes of The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. But instead of sticking too close to the formula of its predecessors, Voyager boldly went in a new direction with a premise that, to this day, remains the most unique and compelling of any Star Trek series. At its heart, Voyager was about survival, exploration, and the impossible challenge of holding onto Starfleet ideals when isolated from the Federation. Other Star Trek shows had expansive settings, but Voyager's premise forced the characters into a crucible of pressure and adaptation. Stranded 70,000 light years from home, Captain Catherine Janeway and her crew faced a 75-year journey back to Earth through uncharted territory, with no reinforcements, no supply lines, and no chance of a convenient rescue. That central idea alone immediately created dramatic stakes that most other Star Trek series couldn't match. Isolation in the Delta Quadrant. The genius of Voyager's setup was its enforced isolation. Unlike the Enterprise crews, who could always call for backup, or Deep Space Nine, which had a stable home base and shifting political alliances, the crew of the USS Voyager had no such luxuries. Every choice mattered. Every battle could be their last. Every new alien species encountered was a potential friend or a dangerous enemy. This scarcity of resources forced the show to explore themes like rationing, self-sufficiency, and even moral compromise. Replicator use was limited, shuttlecraft were irreplaceable, and Starfleet's vast support network was completely out of reach. That meant Janeway's leadership mattered more than ever. Her ability to balance principle with pragmatism often determined whether her crew lived another day. The Delta Quadrant wasn't just a backdrop, it was an antagonist in itself. Federation meets Maquis. Adding to the drama was the initial tension between Starfleet and the Maquis rebels. Voyager didn't just strand a Starfleet crew, it forced them to integrate with a group of freedom fighters who openly distrusted Starfleet's rules and chain of command. In many ways, this clash of ideals embodied Star Trek's central question: how do people with opposing philosophies find common ground? While later seasons didn't always fully lean into this conflict, the Maquis Starfleet integration gave early Voyager episodes an edge. It allowed for rich character development, particularly for Chakotay, Belena Torres, and Tom Paris, who each represented different shades of outsider identity. The premise asked, could a Starfleet vessel, built on hierarchy and order, truly survive when its ranks were filled with rebels, misfits, and those skeptical of Federation ideals? The exploration factor. At its core, Voyager was the purest expression of Star Trek's exploratory spirit. Every other show had the safety net of known space, established alliances, and familiar alien powers like the Klingons or Romulans. Voyager, however, had none of these. Every new sector was a mystery. The Delta Quadrant offered entirely fresh alien species, technologies, and moral dilemmas. This gave the writers an unmatched freedom. They could invent species like the Kazan, the Vidians, or the Hirogen without worrying about established canon. The show had the ability to deliver first contact episodes on a scale unseen since the original series. Unlike other crews, Voyager's officers couldn't rely on the political leverage of the Federation. They had to negotiate, improvise, or sometimes outwit their way through conflict with species that had never even heard of Earth. High stakes every week. Another reason Voyager's premise outshines others is the inherent stakes of its journey. With no shortcuts home, every episode was framed by the long road ahead. Even victories often came with bittersweet reminders of how far away Earth still was. The caretaker pilot established this perfectly, stranding the ship with no way back and leaving Janeway with a devastating choice: save her people in the Delta Quadrant or return her crew home. From that moment on, Voyager became the most existentially dramatic Star Trek series. Episodes like Year of Hell, Equinox, and Scorpion pushed the premise to its limits, showing just how fragile survival was and how easily Janeway's principles could be tested. Unlike Picard or Sisko, who could often rely on the weight of the Federation to back them up, Janeway's crew stood alone. That isolation made their struggles and triumphs feel more personal, more human, and ultimately more rewarding. The heart of the story. Perhaps the greatest strength of Voyager's premise was its emotional core, the idea of home. More than any other Star Trek show, Voyager grounded its adventures in a universal longing, the desire to return to loved ones, to find safety, to make the impossible journey back. Every member of the crew had their own reasons for wanting to get home, and every detour, danger, or setback cut deeply. This gave Voyager a built-in emotional resonance. It wasn't just about boldly going